Okay, I think. All right, we are recording. So for those of you on the call right now, thank you for joining in. I do see some of you have your video on. Feel free to have it on, or you can turn it off, totally up to you. You will not have the pleasure of seeing me in my pajamas today. Just kidding, I'm in my work pajamas. I'm not in my pajamas. But what we're doing today, and I do believe I have you all muted right now. As I mentioned, for those of you on the call, if you have a question, pop it into the group chat and I will see it, answer it as we go along. What we're doing today is buyer and seller guides in Command. So they're both print options and digital options that you can take advantage of. And I know in regards to the print ones, which is what we're going to start with, even though you might not be doing as many in-person meetings, now is a really great time to kind of spend in designs, building out your buyer guide, seller guide the way you want it. That way you have it ready to go when all your meetings start ramping up in person again. And they're pretty cool in my opinion. So what we're gonna start with, obviously I am logged into Command and we're gonna go right to designs. If you've never been in designs before, anytime I go in there, I'm seeing all of the designs I've created as of yet. If I've already created, or if you've already created a buyer guide or seller guide, it would be under the print section. But we're gonna start from scratch today by clicking this little blue button in the bottom right corner. And we're gonna go print marketing. And if you've been in designs before, this might be a little bit of a refresher in regards to the functionality, but the buyer and seller guides do have a few quirks that I just want to point out, and that's why I'm starting with those. To find those guides in here, you can either go under listing for a listing presentation or buyer for a buyer presentation. In this situation, let's look at a buyer presentation. Right away, I'm seeing two options. Just from my point of view, I think doing white background is probably going to be your best bet to save on ink when printing. So just something to keep in mind if you do plan on using this for printed in-person meetings. So if this is the one I'm deciding to use, I'm going to click use. And it's going to load into the editor. All right, so from here, as I can see, I have nothing in my actual guide yet. If I were to download this right now, all I would have is a blank page. Everything you see here on the left are options you can add it to your guide, but they're not actually added in until you click on them. So the first thing I'm gonna do is actually go up here in the top right and name my design so I can come back to it if I'm not gonna be able to finish it all in one sitting. From there, I can see I just have this one page so far, and I want to start going through this left-hand column to decide what pages I actually want to add. So the nice thing about these buyer guides is they're completely flexible for what you want to include. I know there used to be a buyer guide in eEdge, but you had to either manually delete pages or just leave them out after you printed them. So the nice thing about this is you're really tailoring it to exactly what you want to include, and they're editable. So for the first one we're going to do, I just want to add the front page to the guide. So from there, now I can see my pages have updated. I now have 2 pages. Something to note is if I click on this pages button, I can see every single page that I have so far in my buyer packet. Anytime you do this, it always starts with a blank white page. I don't actually want that. So what you can do is you can click this little arrow and delete. Goodbye. So now my buyer packet just includes this front page. So starting with this, just a couple things to note. Obviously, these are not our logos. Your name is not first name, last name. So there are aspects of this guide that do require you to edit. So you will have to go through and make those edits before you actually print them. That is what I would say is going to take you the most time, is just personalizing it a little bit. And that's why, like I said, I think this is a really good opportunity for all of you to take some time to build out your buyer guide, get it edited the way you want it. And then the nice thing about that is you can replicate. So there are some areas where you can personalize to specific clients, but once you have one built out, all you have to do is replicate the entire document and edit it from there. So it's just going to make your life easier versus building it from scratch every time. So in regards to actually editing this, to edit text, you have to double click into the text box. If I were to just click the text box once, that means I can move it around. I don't want to do that. I'm going to click undo. To actually edit it, I'm just double clicking in. So if this is for me, oops, I like how they did the all caps. Wow, I promise I know how to spell my own name. Last name, gonna double click, enter my last name. Obviously, I don't like that spacing, so this is where I can move it a little bit closer, even closer, and voila, that's updated and edited. But once again, these logos are not our logos, and that's something you're gonna notice in designs. And if you didn't see what I just did, I went to the bottom right corner, and you can make the screen bigger if you want a closer look. But what you'll notice in designs is that the logo, it's always gonna say KWDBA name. It's never gonna have the Minnetonka logo. So that's something you're gonna wanna go back in and update. To do that, over here on the left-hand side, you can see your editing columns. Right now I'm in images. So if you wanted to, you could add your headshot to the front page. As you can see, I have Tanya in here. But what we want to do is we want to go down to this logos button right here. And from there, you can add any logos that you want. So I want to add a red and gray KW Minnetonka logo. So for you, if you've never been in here, you're going to have all of these white boxes, meaning you can add up to 8 logos at a time. I'm going to go into my photos. I'm going to find the logo I want. And then I'm going to exit out. Now I have that saved in here, and it's always going to pop up no matter what document I'm working in, which is really nice. So I'm going to pop in here. And the nice thing is all you have to do is drag and drop, and it swaps right out. If you have a team logo, you can put that here. So like, for example, we have our team sample logo. I could do that. Oh, that one doesn't want to pop out. So in that case, I'm just going to delete it. Add in our team sample logo, resize, and there you have it. So you can update these. It doesn't have to be this small. You can make it larger if you wanted to. Really, it's up to you. So have a little fun with it, make it your own, update it however you want. But now that I'm done with this page, I'm gonna zoom back out a little bit. I'm gonna go back to templates up here in the top left. And now I wanna add more pages. So my front page is done. I wanna keep going and see what else I can add. So buyer consult, this is actually just an instructions page for how you can build out your buyer packet. It's not actually a page you will include in your buyer packet, if that makes sense. As we go down, okay, client name. So this is if you want to personalize your buyer packet to each client. In here, obviously it's adding just regular generic stock photos. It says client name. Those are all things you can update yourself. I'm not going to go super in depth, but one thing I do want to show you is in regards to the stock photo. If you have a photo that you want to use, you can upload your own by clicking on it, going into images. This is a photo I uploaded. I could use that. Or you can go to company, KW stock images.
Driving up to Marston, and we are.
Somebody is unmuted. I'm gonna mute you all.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. So if I went to company and then KW stock images, there's a ton of stock images that you guys can use for any document you are working in, which is pretty cool. So if one of these really speaks to you, all you have to do, once again, drag it, drop it. If I want to edit how the placement is, double click, done. Obviously, I've done this quite a few times, so I may make it look a little bit easier than it is. My number one suggestion when it comes to designs is just playing around. It is a practice makes perfect situation. And once again, now is the best time that you could be spending on this. So down here, that's where you would update your information. Once again, by double clicking into that text box, you can update this with all of your contact info. Continuing with templates, you can see, you can keep going. Maybe you want a table of contents. Maybe you want a page about your app. So I'm literally just going in and clicking the pages that I want to add. And now I can see down here in the bottom, I now have up to 4 pages. I can click there. I can see what pages I have. Once again, if you click this little arrow, you can always delete a page. You can also duplicate a page, or you can rearrange pages by dragging and dropping. So there's a couple different options you can do with those, but my biggest recommendation, just pop in here, go through it, spend some time finding the pages that you want to add. The content is editable, so if you don't like the way something is worded, you can update it. But one thing I do want to touch on, scrolling through these templates, and there's a lot, you guys, like you could have the longest buyer packet known to man. I don't recommend that. I recommend picking and choosing based on what you think is the most relevant. But I do appreciate how many options they have in here. And one thing, you know, coming from a mortgage perspective, hi, Tanya, I see you down there. I think it is important to have a page in your buyer packet that touches on the financing aspect. They do have a nice page in here. And what I actually took the time to do is I branded one to New American Funding. We have a buyer packet page that you can add to your buyer packet if you want to make sure that your clients can easily get in touch with Tanya, know about Tanya. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. It's fully built. All you have to do is print it out, add it to your buyer packet. You're good to go. But I do think it is important to have that financing piece. Make sure you're directing people to your preferred lender. Hopefully Tanya, throwing in a plug there. But just as a way to kind of start that process. So if you keep going, the pages literally just keep on coming. So there's a lot that you can work with here. Obviously, that was a pretty quick introduction to the designs aspect, creating a buyer guide in designs. Just pop in there, play around with it. And if you run into any troubles, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're more than happy to set up a one-on-one Zoom call if necessary, or walk you through some of the common little quirks that you may run into. So say I am done with my buyer packet here, ready to go, ready to download. If you're ready to download, there's this little down arrow and download. And I would recommend a PDF in this situation. And then something to note as well, if you want, you can do a digital PDF. So if you want to kind of save paper, you could do a web quality, and then it just opens it as a tab in your internet browser. And then you could have people scroll through maybe on a tablet, something like that. Otherwise, if you're printing it, make sure you have high resolution print quality selected, start download, save it to your computer, good to go. So one last thing to note about this, if I'm done with it, or if I know I'm just gonna come back to it later, I'm gonna click done. I'm in my print templates, or I'm gonna go into my print templates. Here's that Tanya branded buyer packet page I have. Once again, let me know if you'd like that. If you want to, you can click these 3 dots and make a copy. So like I said, if you're in a situation where you already have a buyer packet created, but now you have a new client that you're going on a buyer consultation with, all you have to do is make a copy and then edit, go into it, edit just maybe the client page or a neighborhood page, and you're good to go. So at least you don't already have the main template created. You don't have to go in and remake it every time. Hopefully that made sense. If any of you on the call have questions about that, feel free to pop into the chat box. I can see that as we're going along. But now I want to hop into something that's a little bit newer, which is the buyer and seller guides that show up on your KW app. So these are pretty cool. I have played around with them quite a bit. If you've started marketing your app out to people, I think this is a really great thing to be aware of and make sure you're editing exactly how you want. To access those guides, you're going to go down here to the consumer button on the bottom left, and it's under the guide builder. So it's a little hard because I can't show you what it looks like from the app perspective, but what I recommend doing is making sure, if you haven't already, downloading the KW app, having it branded to you, and then looking through those buyer and seller guides and just kind of seeing how you can visualize those as a client. When you come into the guide builder, I'm seeing right now I have a buyer's guide and I have a seller's guide. It shows me how many steps. And from here, if I want to go in and edit it, all I have to do is click this pencil. So let's start with the buyer guide. I'm going to click on that. And you can see this is essentially, honestly, what it looks like within the app, is sort of these little chunks. And you can start. So here you have your guide, and you also have an introduction. So making sure you're going in, if you want to update any of the verbiage on here, you can have a nice little introductory card that people are going to see when they start that home buying process. All the editing takes place on the right, and as you edit, you'll be able to see that update on the left. Popping back into the guide. So first things first, this is just the automatic order that Command puts it in. So the nice thing is with these guides, you have a couple different things you can do. So you can customize them, obviously, make sure it fits to how your business runs. If you don't do things in this exact order, don't put them in that order. You do have the option to add, remove steps, edit the information within the steps, and also reorder them as you go along. So let's start with editing. If you want to edit maybe the start your search button, you click on it. And you can see up here, it's called an educational step. There are two types of steps: educational steps and smart steps. Educational steps, like this start your search step, that's a lot of S words, wow. Educational steps are fully editable and detailed, and you can put in as much information about the step as you want. So like you have over here, you can update this image if you'd like. To do so, all you have to do is click on here, and then it's going to let you upload one of your choosing. The card title, so that's the start your search option, and then card subtitle. So this is just kind of like a little introductory paragraph, whereas all the real like meat of the step happens under workspace details over here. So you can see as I'm scrolling through here, there's a lot of information. So if you want to simplify it, by all means, kind of condense that information a bit. If you want to personalize it to you, absolutely go in there and do that. I think adding as many details that personalize it to how you run your business is super important. Obviously, it's a little bit different for everybody. So just making sure you go in here, you read them, you're not just pushing people out to this without it, you know, speaking to you as their agent. So as I mentioned, there are two types of steps. You have your educational step. You also have what are called smart steps, and there are two smart steps that are available right now. This one, which is the get pre-approved, and then another one about home insurance. So as you know, I work for New American Funding, so I'm just gonna say this get pre-approved one, as you can see, it's called a smart step, and I tested this in my app. When if I were a consumer, get to this step, it automatically pops up with a Keller Mortgage link. You can, as a consumer, choose to say, I'm already working with another lender. But the caveat is that you can't edit this besides just the card title and the card subtitle. So if you don't want that pop-up going out to every single person, you can't do anything about it. However, there is another caveat on top of that caveat. You can create your own step and also delete steps. So as I mentioned, if I'm hovered over this right now, I see this little blue garbage can. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna copy this card subtitle, gonna delete that one, and then I'm gonna scroll to the bottom and add a new step. I wanna make my own get pre-approved step, because I working. Oh, my caps locks are on. Once again, I don't necessarily want the Keller Mortgage pop-up getting going out to all of my clients. So I'm doing that. I'm pasting my verbiage. I'm choosing an image. What stock photos do I have? Sure. Oh, come on. Great. So now I have my new image, and what I can do, I mentioned you can rearrange them. You grab them by their 6 dots and you move them up. So getting pre-approved, if you ask any loan officer, should be probably the first step before they look into anything. You don't want your clients getting their hopes up over a house they can't necessarily afford. So making sure that they've talked to a lender, they know exactly what they're approved for is super, super important. So honestly, I personally find these 2 steps to be kind of intertwined. I think this verbiage here, save your favorite homes, then add them to a collection. I would probably wait to do that until after I have my client go through the lending process, getting pre-approved. But once again, like I said, these are fully editable. So you have the option to have it in order, exactly how you want it, saying exactly what you want it to say. So now that I pop into here, it's an educational step. It's no longer a smart step. I can have it say whatever I want. So then at that point, I can add in this workspace text way more information, what the lending process looks like, giving them information as to, you know, documents they should be giving their lender, phone numbers and contact information for their lender, etc. So now I have so much more flexibility with this section. And considering, you know, the lending process, like how many steps there are to it, all of the different important pieces of information, I do think it's important to be able to have some nice, thorough information in that one. So now I can save my changes. So just through those few minutes, you've seen editing a step, you've seen creating a new step, deleting a previous step, rearranging a step. So those are the main functionality aspects of these guides and how you create them. If any of you on the call have a question on how to do that, please send it in the little chat box. Once again, maybe if you're listening to this later, you can contact me directly and we can help you figure that out. But in general, the nice thing is the functionality of making this, editing this, etc. Super, super simple. I did mention there were 2 smart steps. The other smart step is this home insurance step, and it has a pop-up for Keller Covered. So once again, if you want them getting that pop-up, you can keep that step or you can create your own. So hopefully that makes sense on how to update that, how to make it, how to rearrange it, etc. And once again, if you haven't already, definitely download the KW app, play around with it, start marketing it out to people, but also make sure that you've taken the time to make these updates and make sure it is personalized to you. So the next thing I want to touch on, I haven't done the seller's guide yet. So if I'm done working on my buyer's guide, and it must not have changed anything, I'm going to go back and now I can work on my seller's guide. The functionality is the exact same process. You can swap out the images, you can mess around with it. I don't believe there are any smart steps in regards to the seller's guide. Let's just take a quick little look-see. I'm almost positive. These are all educational steps, so you can edit this workspace text however you would like. So once again, to actually access this, you go to Consumer, you go to Guide Builder, and then you click on these little pencils, you're able to edit those guides. Another thing that you may want to keep an eye on is you're able to, so basically the purpose of these guides, I should say, is for you and your client to both track where they are in the process, know what's coming up next. As a consumer, when you're in the app, you're able to check off once a step is completed. So I'm actually looking up, if you have your phone with you, feel free to pull that app up. and take a look at the guide. But when you're in the app and you're in specifically one of those information cards, you can mark the step as completed. If I have an agent attached to my account and they have an opportunity for me, so say I am their buyer, I'm signed with them, I'm going through the process, and I mark a step as completed, you as the agent can see that. So to do that, like I said, you have to have an opportunity created for a client. So I actually did this yesterday as an example. To access that, you're going to go to your contacts and find that specific client. So I'm going to contacts. I created one for myself, so let's pop into me. And then you can see I have an opportunity. So if this person, pretend it's not me, is a buyer, and I come in here, if they've started moving through this process, you'll be able to see that. So buyer profile, if they're a seller, it'll say seller profile. So I don't have this account connected to the app on my phone because this is actually my coworker. We have a dummy account. We are not a real estate agent. What you would see here under guide is an option to manage the guide. And then you're able to see completed steps. You're able to mark steps as completed, etc. Once a client has gone through the entire guide, their app will actually reflect that and they'll be sent a notification. And like I said, they're also able to mark those steps as complete as they go along as well. So you both have that option to do so. If you want to move them along in the process, maybe they're not using their app, this is where you would go. Once again, you go to their contact, you go to the opportunity within the contact, buyer profile, and guide, and there would be a manage guide button right here. Okay, so that is the gist of it. A pretty quick, hopefully painless process. Any of you on the call right now, does anybody have any questions on how to set that up, how to edit, how to track what your clients are doing, etc.? I know you're all muted, but I'm not getting any chats. So hopefully that means this looks like a pretty easy process. I know given everything, we're obviously not in the office, but Tanya and I are both still available. Should you want to do a Zoom call, talk about something mortgage related, talk about something marketing related, we can still do that. I know I'm obviously a people person, so being stuck at home isn't my ideal. So don't hesitate to reach out to me if you do want to go over whether it's Command or Canva or design or anything to set up a time to do a Zoom call. Please don't hesitate. I am more than happy to do that. Once again, thank you everybody who joined for the call, for coming in. And then if you're watching this later, thank you for watching this later. And that is it. And you are free to go. All right. Goodbye, everybody.